Hello, folks, and welcome to another video on globalism. And this particular one is going to be on globalism and agriculture. On my previous videos on globalism, I was trying to touch base and cover topics such as globalism and illegal aliens, globalism and uh, gun control, and various other topics like climate change and globalism, various other topics that I think it is inherently, extremely solidly related to the globalism and the globalist agenda. And you're saying that, on the top right corner of this screen, and I added Agenda to, 2030 as part of the globalist plan, the ambitious globalist plan. And agriculture will be also pretty much, related within this perspective. So, right, let's just delve into it. Again, globalism and agriculture. So, what we're noticing here now, currently in the United States, that individual farming communities are dying. Individual small farming families, small farming communities are struggling and struggling real badly. What's happening here is the giant corporations are trying to consolidate the entire farming business under a few names. So basically, what they want to do is they're trying to establish a globalist control on food supply, basically, right? Well, needless to say, the food, uh, the availability of it, the preparation of it, distribution of it, and the overall agriculture, obviously, are all uh, coming together in this perspective, part of this chain, which is impacting people's livelihood. And no one can deny that, right? The food, in a few days, a couple days, 3 days. I can't remember who said that. I think it was Tolsky, Leo Tolsky, one of the Russian philosophers who was behind the Bolshevik revolution. Uh, I'm sorry, that's Trotsky. I think Leo Tolstoy was a philosopher, but not. I was thinking Trotsky, but I'm sorry, I correct myself. It was Tolstoy. He was saying people are only 3 meals away from a revolution. When he was saying 3 meals, he was referring to 3 days of food supplies. That was, in my opinion, a pretty good depiction and definition, describing the situation that the chaos, the potential total chaos in societies if the food supplies are kind of dwindling down and people don't know where to find food for tomorrow, for next couple of days or next 3 days. Imagine that, imagine put yourself in a position that you go out just like you do every week, the grocery stores, and all the shelves are empty. And because of the chaos, people they all ran and kind of ransacked and stole and gathered all the items on the shelves, and all it takes is a day. If everybody runs to grocery stores, right, and just grab everything they could find, imagine the chaos, the total volume of it. All it takes is a day, and after that, no one knows when, if any, a food supply will be coming back to those grocery stores. After that kind of situation, you know that never. So this is that's why the agriculture. I wanted to kind of analyze the agriculture sector under the auspices of the concept of globalism and the globalist control. On my previous videos, whether it was a gun control or illegal aliens or climate change, these are all different but important legs or phases of the globalist agenda. And again, I repeat, the ultimate goal of the globalists is absolute and total and utter control of the humanity on the planet. Controlling the food supply is one of the most secure ways of establishing the amount of control that they want to establish. And how do they do that? Imagine now the United States, especially, look at the country 50 years ago, about 100 years ago. Let's look at the 100 years ago. 100 years ago, 80% of the population was farmers. In America, more than 100 years ago or 150 years ago, almost everybody was farming. When you look at today, less than 1% of the population is farming. But because of the technological developments, even less than 1% of the population is in the farming business, that the US farmers can feed the entire population of almost 340 million people, and beyond meaning they're even feeding the world. Just to China alone, 50 million tons of wheat is being exported to China every year from the United States. So the US farmers, with the availability of the technology and the great uh, 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 areas, the physical surface which is available for farming business, is making this possible, because there are vast amount of spaces available in the continental United States currently available to farming. In fact, if you look at the numbers, in compared to total surface of the U.S., the continental United States, the total area where people are living in the cities is actually minute if you compare to the total area where the farming is being done. So with that kind of vast amount of space, that's why, and with the technology availability of the advanced technology today, U.S. farmers can feed all 340 million people plus many other nations in the world. There is a lot of agricultural exports going on annual basis. So now the fact that the giant corporations, for instance, Cargill, has huge potential, huge power as far as determining the wheat prices, for instance, and the markets related to food markets. They have a huge ability to manipulate the markets and the market prices. So companies like Cargill, uh, they are trying to consolidate every passing year more and more. And if you compare the amount of small farming communities in the United States today, and if you compare them to 50 years ago, you're gonna notice a stark difference. Today, the small communities, small farming communities, family farmers are a whole lot less than how much it used to be 50 years ago. Now you can say this: well, the technology is so advanced now, we don't need that many people farming. We don't need that many families, small communities being involved with the farming business. We can leverage the efficiencies of the giant corporations for farming business, so that can be all consolidated, and that can be done more efficiently, and it's good for economy. So is that sounds probably to a lot of people right. That makes sense to a lot of people. But if you dig a little deeper, you're gonna see a different picture. There is a different reason behind all this consolidation. That's not necessarily to create more efficiencies and productivity by consolidating the farming activities, because small farmers, small farming communities are actually inherently important, and they're also using and utilizing technology within their farming business, within their small farms, and they're producing uh, sufficient amount of food. In fact, for instance, I remember this every year when we go visit Kansas. We live in Minnesota, and we go visit Kansas because my in-laws are living in Kansas. And remember driving through Kansas, I remember seeing signs, and it was saying one Kansan farmer feeds you 100 people plus you. I remember this sign so many times. So that was a proud farming community, and they are actually essential blocks of the agriculture industry in this country. Right now, what's happening here, and that's all across the board, not only in Kansas or Iowa or Midwest or Wisconsin, anywhere. You go to Oregon, you go to California, you go to different parts of the country, you can hear the similar stories from the individual small farmers that corporations are entirely changing the landscape and making life very difficult, very difficult for those farmers to continue earn living. In fact, a lot of farmers back to back in many places are closing down, shutting down their farms because simply because they cannot stay in business. They cannot continue their operations. It is economically impossible. They don't have enough cash flow to continue their operations, let alone making living and making profit and making investments to expand their operations. They just cannot even stay afloat. And this is a typical story. A lot of farmers are today struggling to the extent that they can barely get by. And that is not a coincidence. That is not some situation that these individuals, these small farmers, don't know what they're doing, cannot kind of accommodate or cannot adapt themselves into the new farming technologies or whatever. It's none of those reasons. The reason is this is by design. Because, again, government, which is controlled totally by the globalist, what they're doing is they are heavily uh, helping those giant corporations. In fact, they are working with them to be able to consolidate more and more. And the outcome of that is the complete elimination of the small farming communities. The goal is eventually not a single farmer will remain. An entire farming business will be controlled by the globalist. And how is it serving the globalist agenda? In what way it's going to serve the agenda? In what way the long-term globalist goals will be served? That way they will be in full control of the food supply. What they want is they want to be in a position that almost like turning a switch on and off. They want to control the availability of the food supply for the masses. And if you can control the food supply for the masses, imagine the amount of control that you have in your possession. If you have the power to starve people, you have more power than probably having bombs, tanks, jet fighters. You just let them starve. That alone is sufficient to get them do what you want them to do, which is nothing but the globalist agenda. The globalist agenda is again to be in complete and utter and absolute control of all the people in the United States and actually on this planet. And gaining access to all the farming land and elimination of all the farming communities, small farming communities, which is the backbone and essential part of the agriculture sector in the United States, they will be facilitating and expediting uh, their goals to be realized, to be achieved. So they want to control the food supply, just like they want to control the cash thus the term cashless society. They also want to control uh, people's perceptions through things such as climate change and divert the financial resources of the taxpayers to directions that labeled as fighting the climate change, uh, in the name of climate change and climate control or global warming, whatever names you're accustomed to hear. And also, of course, the other phases of the globalist agenda is always uh, on the education side, uh, across the board, bring in the most uh, radical form of leftist liberalism within the higher education system, and then also in general education system, and basically infusing down through all the social, the kind of a cascading through all the social layers to eventually be in complete control of the people. That's how they will control people, by controlling what people eat, what people drink, what even the oxygen the people breathe, where people spend their money, how and when even they should spend money. That's why they're going for cashless society. Once people don't have cash on them, they will be only given, in fact, not even spending their money, given what they think the government thinks the people should have at any given moment. That's why globalist agenda is part of the globalist agenda. I wanted to cover and touch base the agriculture situation on this video, because you're going to see that if you ever check the other videos I made, the ones that I mentioned, such as the illegal aliens and gun control and climate change and also neoliberal Marxism, that's the fifth one, this video. And you can see that agriculture and the goals of the globalists on agriculture are very much closely intertwined and solidly working and functioning well with all the other goals, because those are all the different legs and different layers and phases of their control, the attempts on complete control. Let's look at what's happening in Europe now. We're seeing on YouTube, we're seeing on TVs, farmers are going on strike in France, and there are a bunch of, thousands of them. They're dumping their crops in the middle of Paris. Similar situation that we saw in Germany, we saw in England. There's a lot of action going on with farmers in Europe. Well, because farmers in Europe are awakened. They realize, they understand what the governments of Europe, which is under the complete control of the European Union, which is one of the strongest tentacles of the octopus called globalism. European Union is as evil as the globalist agenda. Is, I repeat, the European Union is as evil as the globalist agenda. And the European farmers woke up to this reality. They know what's going on. They can see through the BS. They understand what's happening, and that's how they're showing their extreme form of disappointment and frustration and anger by going through boycotts, or they're going through strikes, and thousands of them blocking major arteries, roads, highways, or city centers in major European cities such as Paris, London, Berlin, different Spain, Madrid, different parts of Europe. They are they're putting up, they're showing their extreme amount of frustration. God bless them. All the power to them. They should do a whole lot more. They should not give in to the European governments, which are completely under control of the European Union. And they don't even remotely and slightly care about the people of their nations, because They don't believe in nationality. You remember I several times mentioned that the globalist does not have nationality. Globalism does not believe in nationality. In fact, globalism is out there to eliminate completely the concept of nationality. Thus, think about elimination of borders or open border policy from this perspective. Again, think about again illegal aliens crossing the border illegally, and the United States government, the Biden administration, the Democratic evil establishment is facilitating real good. This whole invasion, and they are even refusing to apply the laws of the land on immigration, and they are in fact preventing those who want to, like Texas, state of Texas, who want to prevent this invasion by applying the existing laws. They don't need any new laws on the books because they have enough sufficient amount of laws. But the federal government is forget about using those, applying those laws. They are actively working against, like state of Texas when they try to apply those laws on the books. They're not even recognizing their own laws. Their goal is to let them invade. They don't believe in nationality. They don't believe in national borders. Same thing in Europe. European governments do not work for their own people. They work towards a goal, this uh, goal in the ether almost, and their masters are the globalists. International or supranational is another term I can use. Supranational, that means it's above all the nations. It's not even the term international don't even apply, because term international implies that two nations at least, right, or several nations, multiple nations, work together to achieve some goal. This is even beyond that. Globalism is way beyond international. Globalism is supranational, meaning way above the concept of nationality and nationalism. Globalism is completely and entirely different entity, overriding the concept of nationality and nationalism entirely. And in fact, it is the enemy of that concept. And that's why they are working hard to eliminate the concept of nationality. They are trying to replace the existing ethnic groups in their own original areas, nations. Because nation has a definition. Nationality has a definition. By this definition, it is a very natural thing to have borders for each nation. And the globalist agenda is being utterly against borders and nationality. And how is it that the European farmers, going back to agriculture aspect of globalism, on globalization, doing with this nationality thing? Because European governments are also trying to do the same thing, very similar thing, very same thing that we're witnessing today within the United States, within the continental United States, by witnessing the small farmer is in huge trouble, extremely frustrated. In fact, so many of them are shutting down. That's what they're trying to accomplish in Europe. That's what the European farmers realize what's going on, and they are basically putting those boycotts and strikes, going on strikes. Because eventually, both in the entire developed industrialized nations, the Western Europe, United States, England, Australia, they want to control the 100% of the food production and availability. Only them will decide how much needs to be produced, what needs to be produced, and how much it should be distributed. They will weaponize the food production. That's what they're trying to accomplish by doing this. And the consolidation of the farming industry in the United States is part of this weaponization of the food industry. Nothing but weaponization of the food industry, that they will have eventually complete control. And once they have it, no one should have the slightest amount of suspicion or doubt. They will use it as a weapon. Food, or that the lack thereof, is one of the best ways of manipulating the masses. Just let them starve and see what happens. Just let them starve. I want to give you one example actually from the Soviet Union times. During the collectivization period in the Soviet Union under the rule of Stalin, Joseph Stalin, they were going through the Soviets. Stalin decided to collectivize all the farms. There was lots of small farmers, just like the small farmers that I'm talking about now. And Stalin thought that's not acceptable. Again, who are we talking about? One of the most decorated, murderous dictators, Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union, Communist Soviet Union. Stalin said it is not acceptable to have a lot of small farmers producing, you know, crops to facilitate, to help to feed the food industry, to feed the people. That's not acceptable. Then he decided to start collectivization period. Collectivization was basically the ownership of all the farming land by the state, then the communist Soviet state. People, farmers, did not accept this. Just like today in Europe, farmers are going on strike and dumping their crops, or in the United States they're trying to struggle. While Russian farmers actually put a fight. The the outcome was horrible, even beyond horrible. Stalin sent the army, the Red Army, and during that period of collectivization, over 20 million people were massacred. They were all farmers. There was amount of starvation, and I want to give you one example that probably explains better than whatever the words I choose to explain the impact of starvation on people. Cannibalism started. Cannibalism examples were actually a lot. Historical records actually hide so many of them, but it's a known thing. Some enough information leaked through the historical, records and books, that it's very well known fact that Russian people, those who were starving, were resorting to cannibalism. In fact, to the point, that some people even ate their own children. I think the amount of starvation, it's impossible to fathom and describe and depict and explain what it does to people. But it's obvious that if a couple can eat their children to survive, otherwise they're going to die of starvation, can tell enough how horrible situations, how incredibly low the people can sink. That's what Stalin did under the communist agenda, to have the complete control of the Russian state. He said, no, not a single farmer. State will be 100% and solely responsible of food production. That's what. That's why I started saying the consolidation of the farming land in the United States, the utter goal, the final goal is serving this kind of need, complete and utter control over the people. That's what I wanted to cover. under the globalization and agriculture. And I would urge you, if you're interested and if you haven't listened to my other videos on the other subject matters under the globalization, because at the end, all these are going to be coming together. Thank you very much for listening to my video. If you like it, please smash that like button and put your comments. Thank you very much. Stay safe.